time winding down on the summer seasonal uniform shop, I wanted to cover all of the summer seasonal uniforms and give my take on whether you should consider picking any of them up. Before we start that, I do want to highlight that something new happened for the first time, I think ever, or maybe this is the second time, my memory's not amazing. Old icons popped up here. You can see I have Sonic Scream, Sorcerer Supreme, and We Are Venom. They popped up and they're available in the shop for the same tokens that you trade for Luna Seasonal, Cynicalex Seasonal, and so on and so forth. And they cost 25 tokens each, which is kind of a lot for an icon. But it's interesting to see that they're bringing back old icons. I personally have a few icons that I wish I could get that I missed at the time because I was boycotting. But it's interesting to see if they'll bring them back. Just keep in mind, though, apparently you can still buy them if you already own them, which is a major oversight by the devs. They should fix this. But for me, I couldn't tell because I don't own any of them, right? So when you scroll down to the bottom here, they're very old icons. You can see there the Sorcerer Supreme one was from the Damnation event shop, which is from like 2021. This is like almost 3 years ago. Then you have the We Are Venom one from the Symbiote event shop, which again is also like September, October 2021. And then the Black Bolt Scream was from the Inhumans event shop long time ago. I don't own these icons, and so that's why I thought they appeared in my event shop. But please let me know down below in the comments if you do own any of these icons and they are still appearing for you. That should not be the case. They should not allow you to buy an icon you already own and essentially waste those 25 tokens. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out to you guys there. Now let's kick it off with the oldest uniforms. The oldest summer uniforms are for Enchantress and Cable. Enchantress got her Summer Days uniform, and it was actually good for a little while because it had a passive ability. All allies increase their mind damage by 30%, and so you could use her as a support and as a lead because she scales debuffs, and this was really good for dispatch. However, since then, she's gotten a War of the Realms non-seasonal uniform. So this one just costs 1,050 crystals when it's on sale, when there's a full uniform sale. And this one still has the same buff. It has a 30% mind damage buff. It actually includes an additional 20% mind resistance. Mind resistance kind of useless, but the rest of it's very good, and the leadership stays the same. So this is just a big fat pass. You should never, ever purchase this uniform. This uniform has literally been made 100% obsolete. And keep in mind, seasonal uniforms, paid uniforms, never enter in as optionals. So there is literally zero use for this uniform. Absolutely zero. And this would be one of the only cases where I would entertain the idea of a refund. I know a lot of people throw that shit around as a joke, but yeah, that one's something to consider. For Cable here, not the Cable and Deadpool, but the Summer Days one, similarly, again, it's been replaced. There's obviously better options now. Heart of Darkness is way stronger than Summer Days, despite having a bit of a wonkier play style. And it's just basically just been replaced, been made obsolete. Thankfully, this one is not purchased with real money. It's purchased with, or like real money converted into tokens. It's just purchased for full cost crystals, but there's still no reason to ever purchase this one. Unless you really like the aesthetic, I guess, but you'd be playing an intentionally inferior Cable, which kind of doesn't make sense, and then that's at the cost of, like, your Cable being better. The next two we got were for Quicksilver and Silk. Now, unfortunately for Silk, this still is her latest uniform, so she really hasn't got anything since, I believe, 2021 or 2022. It's been a long time for Silk. So this is her best uniform. So if you really want to play as Cindy Moon Silk, you really badly want to play as her, then I guess you would consider buying this uniform. But again, it costs real money converted to tokens, and she's also essentially the worst Spider-Verse character. And I don't say that, or Spider-Sense character, I should say. I don't say that lightly. If you take a look here, she's either the worst or the second worst. And that's not saying that she's a bad character necessarily. It's just to say that all of the other characters are better. They've gotten more recent uniforms. They have more utility. They have tier 4. They have access to artifacts, all that stuff. She doesn't. I now use her, just to show you guys I'm serious here, I use Silk on stage 32 or 31 of Shadowland because she is, I believe she is the weakest Spider-Verse character. So yeah, you can see right there, I use her on stage 32. So I wouldn't pick up the uniform if I were you. But again, if you really want to use Cindy Moon, it is technically her best uniform. So yeah, that's something to consider, I guess. But I would just use a different Spider. I would play with Spider-Gwen or whatever and wait for Silk to get a better uniform in the future. Quicksilver, very similar to Cable. He has a better uniform now, and it's not seasonal. So you could just completely ignore the Summer Days uniform. He's actually gotten multiple uniforms. No, he hasn't gotten multiple uniforms since then. No, this was his latest uniform before Uncanny Mighty. But yeah, it doesn't matter. There's no supportability here. There's no special feature. There's water-based skills. That's it. But this new one is much stronger, and it's much cheaper. So there's really no reason to ever consider that one. And then we come to the ones from last year, which were Summer Storm. A lot of S's, and Iceman. So Storm and Iceman, or sorry, not last year, 2 years ago, excuse me, 2022, we got Storm. And so, whoa. Those other ones were not 2022. Those were like 2019, 2020. Anyways, Storm and Iceman. I'll get Iceman out of the way quickly here. Similar to Silk, this is his best uniform, his most recent uniform. He's just not very good. He's not very strong. He's only going to be good for PvE, and he's not even that good. Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, it's just not very good. It looks cool. Like, Iceman's always looks cool. I love Iceman. Don't get me wrong. Personally, love him. But yeah, this uniform is definitely not it. And they're gonna give Iceman a tier 4 in the future, so they have to give him a new uniform. So just fight the urge to buy this uniform, unless you already bought it, obviously. And then which in this case you couldn't fight the urge. And then just wait for him to get a new one. This one is definitely a big skip. But Storms, on the other hand, is actually quite good. Now, I know it's a couple years old now, but it's still a good uniform, if not for anything else but the passive. The Eye of the Storm passive gives all allies 30% ignore dodge, which is pretty good. And then for elemental damage characters, 55% increase elemental damage. That's very good. That's a very, very good buff to buff characters like Jean, characters like Rogue, Psylocke, etc. And it's actually particularly good for Rogue because Rogue deals multiple types of elemental damage, right? She deals lightning and mine. And so having that flexibility where you're not just buffing lightning from something like Thor or Odin, or just buffing mine from something like Enchantress, is much better. And on top of that, Storm is actually a good character. She's also tier 4able, so you have that big ceiling. She's pretty good at level 80. There is still the memes about her speed and how slow she is, and that's true, but you can learn to play around it. Her first skill has good movement. I probably exaggerated. At the time, I exaggerated how slow Storm was because I wanted to get the devs to fix it, and they didn't. And the speed of Storm has sort of stuck as her main criticism. But, you know, you can just get movement speed on your cards. You can get movement speed on your swords now. You can actually, I think you can get movement speed on your emblems for World Boss. And you can also, like I said, use that first skill tactfully to dodge out of attacks. So yeah, I don't think the speed thing should be an issue. And she's also available for the Team Up collection. So she's going to benefit like Cable, Deadpool, and Wolverine. This is one of the most valuable, I would argue this is the most valuable Team Up collection. You get a ton of saturation here with very, very strong meta characters. You have 3 highly meta characters here, and Storm is not far behind. So she benefits from all of that, and you know, you can, you know, build her up and sort of make her stronger while also focusing on other mutants. And now we come to last year's options, Mysterio and Luna. These are both really good pickups here. I don't have to tell you, Mysterio, very, very strong support now. Decent character on his own, but he gives all villain allies 30% attack and 40% increased damage to boss types, excuse me. This is very good to buff Magneto, to buff other villains. This is strictly for PvE. You're not going to get any PvP value here. But you also do get Mysterio with one of the coolest and most unique sort of uniforms going on here. He's got the glow like Chasm. He's got the gold blinged out. It looks really cool. He still sort of looks like he has Luke Cage's head, but that's okay. And yeah, he's a decent character on his own. Like, he's not going to wow you with his damage, but I said he's a, you know, he has a VPAD skill, which is cool. I said he's a good support for Magneto, but if you don't have Magneto, I actually think Mysterio is still the best villain blast male, the second best after Magneto, after the, you know, the Winter Magneto. So yeah, you might actually want to get Mysterio for that if you're not going to get Magneto for whatever reason. And you know what? Although it's almost 2,000 crystals to get Mysterio, and he's much worse than Magneto at tier 4, obviously, because he's not tier 4. Magneto is 6,600 crystals plus 2,000. So yeah, again, I'm not trying to say Mysterio is better than Magneto or more valuable or better, value for your dollar, but it is just an interesting proposition if you don't want to climb up that hill and you don't really want to focus on the mutants, Jean Grey and Magneto. And then the other one from last year is Luna. This is the best seasonal uniform they've ever released. They just made Luna super strong. She's got a V-pad skill. She's a little bit annoying to play for sure, but she's insane. Yeah, absolutely insane damage, mostly for ABX, ABL. I will say that. If I had to critique her, she's pretty good for World Boss Legend. There are better options for World Boss Legend, I will say that. Like certainly Gamora, although she isn't available for as many stages, Gamora just rips World Boss, mainly because Luna's not proc friendly, but also because Luna just... she's just not really about burst damage so much as she's about like continuous damage, and that does really well in ABX, ABL, and doesn't do as well in World Boss because of phase changes and movement and stuff like that. She's also not very good for GBR. So yeah, you're mostly getting her for ABX, ABL, but then what you're getting for ABX, ABL is essentially the best character in the game. Best character in the game for ABX, ABL represents some of the best return on your investment possible. Now, that does require you to plan ahead, to have good cards, to be in a good alliance, to understand the game, to have a good build. You don't need a brilliant. If you're bad at the game, you need a brilliant. But yeah, you do need a lot of investment in order to make that return, to hit those returns, right? To hit those 12 million ABLs, to get those chests with 50 tier 4 materials. There's tons of content out there highlighting how good she is. It's a no-brainer. And then for the most recent ones, I know we've talked about it, but I think Yondu is a strong consideration for a must-buy, especially if you want, specifically if you want to buff aliens. If you're not really into aliens, not in a Mass Effect way, by the way, shout out to Apache. If you're into aliens for MFF, then yeah, I would say he's kind of a shoe-in. Like if you really love Thor, if you really love Thanos, Gladiator, blah, 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 Odin, Star-Lord, then yeah, I'd say Yondu is absolutely a shoe-in to buy. If not, you can skip them. You can wait a year. There will be more supports. More supports will come out that are as good as him, maybe better, maybe not better, but at least as good as him, maybe more flexible. And then for Psylocke, it's very much like Luna, but just less value than Luna. I would say Psylocke is better for GBR, better for World Boss, but then has significantly less value for ABX, ABL, because she's only taking over 2 days instead of like 6 days. So yeah, it's a little bit less, but it's still good. And again, she replaces Rogue. She can compete with Cable, very, very strong. And in particular, like I mentioned, the team-up collection, if you don't have a strong team-up collection, which means your Cable is not benefiting a lot, then Psylocke is going to be an even better option, right? People forget when they're comparing things like Psylocke and Cable, you're comparing potentially a character with 25% pierce to one with 35% pierce. So that's a huge difference, right? That's a massive difference, 30% more pierce. And so because of that, without those buffs, then Psylocke performs even better. So I do think she's very, very good. She's probably the second or third best summer seasonal overall, with Luna taking the cake for number 1, and then maybe an argument to be made for like Mysterio or Yondu as a support for number 2. But in terms of like damage dealers, in terms of like main DPS, Luna's number 1, Psylocke is number 2, and they're both very close, if not must-buys, for any sort of ABX, ABL content. So yeah, that's my breakdown of all of the summer uniforms. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Sorry about the mix-up with the years when they were released. Thank you for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.